Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Jay Singh, and I'm the founder of Publication Academy, your online training partner for higher ed career advancement and professional development. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today for this installment of our Career Pathway series, Exiting Academia. Today, we have a wonderful and fascinating interview with the fantastic Dr. Juliet, who successfully transitioned from completing a PhD in civil and environmental engineering into the exciting industry vertical of wastewater management. So let's get right into it. Over now to our amazing Publication Academy interviewer, Dr. Gertrude Nantra.
Hello everyone, Dr. G. Nantra here, and today I have with me Dr. Juliet Ohiming Intiamwa, and she is going to be talking to us about her own path outside of academia. Welcome, Dr. Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc.
So I was just telling you my mom's name is also Juliet, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So let's start out with talking about your educational background and what led you to choose a career outside of academia.
Okay. So my educational background, first of all, I did most of my education in Ghana. So I did my undergrad back in Ghana in KNUST, where I did environmental science. And after that, I worked, I'll say close to 2 years in the oil and gas industry. And there, specifically at Tullow Oil, I had the opportunity to be mentored by Dr. Glenn Bestall. So he had a PhD and was working in the oil and gas industry. So I would say that was the first exposure to people with PhDs working in the industry. So that was a good exposure for me. Now, when I left Tullow Oil to come to the US to do my PhD in environmental engineering at Tennessee Tech, I would say that at the back of my mind, I knew that, I could go to industry. So but then, I also like the idea of, being a professor at some point. And also because my mom felt that would be cool, right? My mom felt that, being a professor at a young age is going to be really cool and all of that. So going into the PhD program, I knew that industry was a possibility.
Yeah.
And then also I knew that, I'm going to see how it goes. And, if I find at the end of the program or at the end of my training that I really want to do academia, that is also a possibility. So I think having these two options in my mind from the beginning made it way easier for me to move into industry at the end of my program.
Right. That's amazing. Because like in contrast to me, I didn't know that there were careers outside of academia when I was starting my PhD because you had been exposed and been mentored by somebody, but I did not have that. So when I was starting to make or think about, I don't want to necessarily be in academia, I was like, then what will I do? So that's amazing that you had that mentorship. This is another testament to why mentorship is so important.
Yeah.
So what do you do now? Let's talk about a day in the life of Dr. Juliet. Oh, I think you're muted. Yes.
Hi. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
No problem. So I'll ask the question again and we'll edit it out. So let's talk about what you do now and what a day in the life looks like.
Okay. With your last question, a day in the life. Well, I don't have a typical day in the life because what I actually do is, first of all, I'm a licensed engineer, so I work as an engineer in an engineering firm, and we are an engineering consulting firm. So we work to solve our clients' problems, and we work with municipalities and cities in the US, trying to solve all the issues that they have to deal with respect to treating wastewater.
Mm.
So, Gertrude, you took your shower today, you flushed your toilet today.
Yeah.
All that water, although it's out of your sight, it's not going away. It's going somewhere to
Yeah.
be treated to a level that is safe to be returned into the environment.
That's right.
So that is the work that we do, and I help evaluate engineering options, and then help with design for our clients to make sure that we are putting in efficient systems that are cost effective, so that your CWA rates that you see on your bill is not extremely high, right? Because we are trying to put in systems that work. So, in a layman's terms, that is what I do,
Hmm.
right? And on a day to day, because it's a consulting job,
Hmm.
I think I would rather describe a typical week.
Okay.
Okay. So a typical week is, okay, maybe I have three projects that I'm working on. One of them, I have big Excel spreadsheets that I'm doing calculations, maybe trying to figure out the size of a particular unit or a particular process that we want to install in a particular place. The next day, I'm probably doing a client workshop where I'm explaining to the clients, why we are putting in two tanks instead of one tank, and why we are choosing this equipment instead of that, and the benefits that the clients will get out of it, right? The
Hmm.
next day, I'm probably at a conference
Hmm.
presenting on a certain topic, to our industry. So, and then maybe the next day I'm writing a report. I'm doing technical writing. So it's all in there.
Very.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that is how I would say a typical week could be. The next day I could be writing an abstract,
Right.
or I could even be having some meetings or work with respect to professional organizations that I belong.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
It's varied. It's varied and interesting. Thanks for sharing
Mhm.
that. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you landed the job, right? One of the challenges that a lot of people face sometimes with these types of jobs in industry is they're not really sure. Well, some of it is posted on LinkedIn, some of it is posted on
Mhm.
Indeed. But what was the process like for you landing this job? What was the job search process like?
Okay. So the job search process was quite interesting for me. And I'll say that I started way earlier
Okay.
than I graduated. So I officially graduated in 2020, but
Hmm.
I started working fall of 2019.
Okay.
And I got the job in, let's say, mid of 2019, right? Now, that is what happened. I started searching. I knew I was going to graduate, let's say 2019 ish. So I started looking for a job 2018, right? And I was applying to jobs online, through websites. I think at that time, LinkedIn, I was not so active on LinkedIn at the time. And I was not even no, I didn't even know that jobs were being posted on LinkedIn as at that time.
Mm.
Now I know way much better, and I teach people how to do it. But so I was doing more of the online and also attending conferences.
Right.
So one of the conference that I attended, which helped me land this job, was the National Society of Black Engineers conference.
Okay.
And that is a conference that I recommend to any students, particularly even international students, in not just in engineering. You'll be surprised that although it's Society of Black Engineers conference, there is always a career fair where hundreds of companies come to recruit, and some of them even recruit for supply chain, business. So although it's a engineers conference, and I'll
Mm.
say 80% of the companies are looking for engineering students, there are people who also come in to look for, supply chain managers, business analysts, and all sort of non-technical roles that are still relevant to engineering firms. So
Right.
that is one thing that I want listeners to pay attention to. National Society of Black Engineers Conference. It happens every March most of the time in a year. So if you're a grad student, save towards that, attend. So, and then before you attend, you do your research to know which companies are employing for which majors. And I
Right.
would say NSB does a great job by creating a brochure where they indicate over the 500 exhibitors that will be coming, those that are hiring, and the majors or the disciplines that they are looking for. So
Right.
I went through the list to see, okay, which companies are looking for civil and environmental engineers,
Right.
and then I noted them down. And at the conference, during the career fair, make sure you have a very good resume ready. And I had my resume proofread and reviewed before the conference. So I went to the conference. One of the company that I'm working with now, I went, to join the line or the queue. And then when I got to my turn, now what these companies are looking for, I know this is not like a career search session, but
No,
let me just
it's great. What you're giving is great advice, because you're giving it step by step. And I think that this is
Mhm.
exactly what people want, because sometimes it's like, okay, you went to the conference, but what did you do? And you're describing that. So I think that's great. One question I have
Yeah.
for you before you continue: how long was your resume? Was it like an academic thing,
Yeah.
like
I
5 pages?
tried I I tried to keep my resume to 2 pages max.
Right. Good.
Yeah, 2 pages max. So and that is, for industry resume, right? I know
Yeah.
that if you want to do academia, you have to show all the publications, all the presentations, everything, all the service activities you've been involved in and all of that. So academia resumes or CVs tend to be way longer than that.
Yeah.
But if you are targeting industry, try as much as possible to shrink your resume to maximum 2 pages. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes. Please continue.
So, I joined the line, and you know, all of these candidates in the line are trying to get the attention of the recruiter, of the people at the booth. And so you need to do your research and, make sure that you're either saying something or you have something on your resume that stands out. And
Right.
also, you are approaching a company that's a good fit in the sense that they'll look at your resume, see what is there, and know what it is and appreciate what it is
Right.
you know so this company that I'm working with, which is Jacobs Engineering, I had read about them. I knew that they recently acquired another big company in the engineering space. So when I got to my turn, I was like, "Hey, hi, Jacobs. I read that you recently acquired CH2M. And one interesting fact: my PhD advisor worked with the company that they acquired.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I read recently that you have acquired CH2M Hill. That's really cool. And the guy was so excited. He was like, oh yes, yes. I was part of CH2M that has been acquired. So like the guy felt that connection. And
Right.
that's yes. So that is one main trick there. That don't just walk up there saying, show that you are interested in them by showing something or saying something that
Right.
resonates with the person.
Amazing.
So it could be, oh, I learned that you've recently opened another office or another location, in this particular place. That lets the person know that you're not just joining the line for trying to find any job, but you really know what they do and
Right.
you've been following them. So
Right.
when I said that, like I said, the guy got really excited. and took my resume, and then he was like, oh, you do wastewater, and he was like, he does remediation, and environmental engineering, but then he's going to give my resume to the team that does wastewater.
Right.
So although it was not even in something that they were looking for at that time, he said, my resume is great. He's going to pass it on to the group that needs those skills. And so, sometimes I was like, at that time, I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to hear from them. When someone takes your resume and says that, I'm going to
Yeah.
um, give it to someone, and you almost never hear back. But
Right.
guess what? I think the next day or so, he reached out on LinkedIn to say that he has sent my resume up, and then he also told me that I should also go to their website to look for positions, and the ones that I feel I'm interested in, I should send him the requisition numbers so that he will trace the um, recruiters or the hiring managers for those roles.
Mm.
So immediately I got home from that conference, I did that homework, sent him the requisition numbers, and then the next few days I was contacted by a recruiter from the company, and they say that the rest is history. But
Rest is
who
history.
yes, the rest is history, and now I've worked with them for 5 years. So
Wow, that's amazing. I love that you shared that detailed of a story because it just like a few things. I want to pick up a few things from what you said.
mhm,
So the first thing was you went prepared, right?
yeah.
And that's what I love about this whole thing is that you went prepared. You did your homework. And this is, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just looking for any job. And the reality, because I used to be this delusional. I used to think, well, as long as I have a PhD, I'll be impressive, right? And that's a delusion. First of all, let me just like
Yeah.
debunk that myth. That's you are like thinking you are more important than you think you are. So I
Mhm,
was in that delusion for a little bit, but nobody cares, right? Nobody really
mhm,
cares about the degree. They really care about how can you help us solve our problem. Right.
yes.
And you went there. Well, first of all, you made that connection, which was really great. And I think it's a standard in there's enough social research to show that if you find a commonality with somebody that you want to connect with, that you're more
Mhm,
likely to connect with them than to like
yeah.
just be generic. So that the fact that you found something like, oh, you guys just bought this other company was
Mhm,
really great. So that's another thing. You were prepared. You found a commonality. To connect with. And then
mhm.
I love the fact that you stayed in touch, right? And the
Yeah.
person on the other end also did a really great, wonderful job
He
because
did a great job,
you stayed
seriously.
in touch and then
Yeah.
followed up on that. So that's amazing. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Those are the nuggets I pulled from your story. So let's moving on and let's talk about transferable skills, right?
Mhm.
So it looks like you're doing something that's really, really close to what you were already researching, correct?
Yeah.
But it's not research; it's consulting. So,
Mhm.
what skills from your PhD do you think have been helpful to you as you've over these last 5 years within this role?
Okay. And it's interesting that, someone from HR asked me the same question, I think a year into my position.
Right.
And, PhDs, and Gertrude, at this point, I'll want to uh, commend you for the work you do on LinkedIn by highlighting a lot of transferable skills that, a lot of PhDs forget or do not realize. So
Right.
for me, if you remember the typical weekday that I described,
Yeah.
I do calculations, design, which I did a lot of during my PhD
Right.
program, because my PhD was in engineering, and had to do a lot of calculations and to see what fits and what works. And then also I do a lot of presentations to both clients and at conferences. All these skills were skills that I built through the PhD program,
That's right.
because you have to present your research. either poster or podium presentation. So these were things that I would say I had mastered over the years through the PhD program that were very necessary in the consulting world.
That's true.
And then in the consulting as well, we want to show our clients that we are on top of our game and in industry. So we need to even read papers. Some of the solutions that we design for our clients, we do research, we read papers, we read papers and keep in touch with academia.
Right.
And right now I'm even working on a book with 15 co-authors from academia and industry.
Right.
And it's because it's on a topic that is relevant to both academia and industry. And I think that's one of the cool things about engineering, and I'll say most of the sciences, that a lot of the things, even the topics, besides the transferable skills, even the topics that we worked on in our PhDs or in our research level, are topics that industry is also interested in.
Right.
And we work together to see how the science is changing and how we can improve the science. So that is also something I do. So like I said, I even I still write abstracts, and I still submit to conferences, and if it's accepted, do present. So those are the problem solving skills. I mean, you did a PhD, you are trying to solve a problem. And on the consultant side, you're trying to solve your client's problem. At the PhD level, it was a problem that you were interested in. Let's say you had decided that, okay, there's a problem that you want to solve for the common good of everyone, right? On the consultant side, your attention goes more into your client's problem, and that is what you're trying to solve for them. So all these skills, in summary, even communication, presentation, problem solving, technical writing, because we do a lot of technical writing, and then even research, reading to understand what has been done and how you can incorporate that to solve the problem. All these are skills that have been serving me well since I finished my PhD program in this role.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing all of that. Those are such communication, technical writing, presentation skills that are so underrated, right? Because we're
Oh
so
yeah.
focused on our research and the results of our research that we don't realize, wait, you gathered so much on the way. So thanks again
Yeah.
for that. What was the hardest part, do you think, well, what was the hardest part of maybe transitioning out of academia? Because you mentioned earlier that you already knew that there were these two paths you could possibly tread.
Mhm.
Do you find it hard to move out of academia?
I think for me it wasn't too difficult at
Right.
all. And I think that maybe the hardest part was the fact that at the time I was finishing my PhD, there was also another research area that I felt, oh, it would be really cool to, you know, delve into this area. It was a topic that I was really interested in, not the topic I did for my PhD, but another emerging topic that I was really interested in. So I would say, got a postdoc position that I didn't go, and it was like, oh, this is a topic I really want to do, but you know what? I feel there's so many different reasons why I want to do industry.
Right.
I felt like I didn't have that strong passion and motivation to stay in academia. And
Right.
so just liking that topic was not strong enough
So strong
to
enough.
go into academia. So that, yeah, the difficult part was the topic that I wanted to delve into. But
Right.
everything else, I was going to do industry. I'll
Right.
say industry first. Maybe later in life, we can be academics after we've made all the good money and made Love it.
That's so funny. Yeah, so, any last words of wisdom? As our time is coming to an end, this has been such an insightful conversation. Thank you for all the wisdom you've shared. What are some last words of wisdom you would give to an engineering student who's watching this and is like, I want to do what Dr. Juliet is doing? What last words of wisdom would you give to that person?
Okay, so I'll say that first of all, for anybody listening to me, you're probably looking to do a PhD or you're a PhD um, student in engineering or trying to get one. First of all, know that there are so many options out there for you. Don't be limited. Don't limit yourself. Don't be myopic. And also, make sure that you have a stronger reason to stay in academia. Pay attention to yourself, evaluate your interests. The PhD training is so intense that the person you start with is not the person you end with. So make sure that you are being in tune with the person that you are coming out of, or the person that you are finishing as, and know that person's interests, know that person's strengths at this time, know that person's needs at this time, and use those to make a decision whether you want to do academia or you want to do industry. So if you came into the PhD program with, oh, I've always wanted to be a professor from age 1 or from 5 years, it's a childhood dream. By the time you're finishing your PhD, ask yourself, what has this 5 years, 6 years, 4 years taught you about yourself that still makes you want to do academia or makes you want to do industry? That self-reflection, I think, is very important, so that you don't just go with the flow or the notion that once you have a PhD, you're supposed to stay in academia or you're supposed to do this. Know yourself, know your interests. Those that have changed, pay attention to them.
Thank you. Wise words. Thank you so much, Dr. Julia. It was such a pleasure chatting with you.